Get the record. All right. Thank you for joining us today for the Iowa Vital Records class, sponsored by the Iowa Genealogical Society. Just a few reminders as we get started. In the lower left corner, you'll see a microphone and video icon, and by clicking on those, you can turn them off and on as you see fit. Please mute your microphones during the class. If you have a question, please raise the hand icon or type your question in the chat, and the presenter, Teresa, will answer your questions either at the end of the session or at a convenient time. Closed captioning is available. I guess I should turn that on. I will do that momentarily by clicking on the closed caption icon. We will be recording the class session today. So if you don't want to take notes or you want to come back and watch it a second time, it'll be available. The recordings will be available for 60 days once you've received the links to the recordings. So with that, I'll turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Sherry's our IT. She's my wingman on all this stuff, because I'm like, I don't think we can make that work. I started to tell you the story about access to Iowa Vital Records. And if you may have noticed in the handout that I gave you, Iowa has kind of a split personality on this. Under the Iowa law, under the Iowa code, vital records at the county level are public records. So technically you can walk in and see records from birth records from last week. Now, whether your county recorder is going to participate in that is, they might throw up some barriers. Whereas at the state level, they were closed for 75 years. They have modified that somewhat. Death records are open after 50 years. But there was a concerted effort probably maybe 20 years ago by the state to close the records on the county level. And we're talking about close them, period. If it had been their preference, you would never, ever be able to see any of this, all right? And they are turned over to the state archives. And so technically you could get to them through the state archives, but they are kind of done by county and in chronological order. So if you did not know the county and when the event happened, the archives couldn't really find it. There was an index with the Iowa Department of Public Health, Vital Statistics, but they would not share that with the state archives. So you can see that we were having some issues as we went through there. And when they tried to change the law, we marshaled all of our local genealogy societies, especially those that were in the counties that the state representatives were on that committee. And trust me, it died a almost immediate defeat. And so now the state archives have been working very closely with Family Search and with Ancestry, and they have been scanning and digitizing all of these records, and they are really available to us, and it's just wonderful. Okay. Now, as I go through this, the one thing I've done this before and I always update it. I'm giving you two basic places to find them online. One is Family Search, and that's free. And if you're not using familysearch.org, you're missing the boat. And the other is ancestry.com, which is not free. Okay. Now, many of you may have a subscription to Ancestry already, but one of the things that if you haven't seen it and you don't get our emails or something like that, if you are a member of the Iowa Genealogical Society, you can access Ancestry through our website, through the end of December. That's something Ancestry did because of the COVID and you couldn't get in and so forth and so on. And it is the World Edition. It's the Library World Edition. So I've had people say, well, gee, I pay for the basic, but I don't pay for the World. And so they're excited about this. So if this is something you want to pursue and you want, our membership is $35. And so if you aren't a member, you can pay $35 and you get access to Ancestry for the rest of the year, which is almost 6 months. You just send an email to igs@iowagenealogy.org. They will confirm that you are a member, and then they will send you a link so that you can get into it. If you're not a member, you can go ahead and pay online and then give us a couple days to get everything all processed and so forth and so on, and then they'll do that. So a lot of the stuff I do this, the idea that you can see it on Family Search, but there's some stuff you have to see on Ancestry, and this is a really great way to do it. So we're very pleased that Ancestry, we spend quite a bit of money for that subscription to Ancestry every year. So we're really glad that we can do this. So, okay. So I'm going to share a screen, and this is always the exciting part. Okay. And there it is. It's right there. Okay. And we are going to start from the beginning. Come on. There we go. And now I have to shrink all sorts of things over here and put that up there and so forth. Okay. Oh, there's Ray and Mary Keebles. Okay. So we're going to talk about Iowa vital records, which are birth, death, and marriage records. And I tossed in divorce records, just in case you have somebody that might have been in a divorce as we go through there. Okay. Oh, how did that get to be at the beginning? It's supposed to be at the end, but I will talk about this because it's here right now. This is the big news in Iowa. And for those of you that might have adoptions in your family, you really care. The rest of you, this is just kind of a general knowledge. In Iowa, they seal the original birth record if an adoption takes place, and they create a new birth certificate with the adoptive parents' names and the child's name that the adoptive parents gave them. And they are sealed, and getting into them could be trying to find your adoption, an adoptee trying to find their original records was difficult. There was a major change in the law that went into effect on July 1st. An adoptee over the age of 18 can request a copy of their original birth certificate. Birth parents can ask that their names be redacted, all right, if they're still among the living and so forth and so on. And there's a form that they have to go through there. I am not sure how that's going to work particularly well, because if an adoption took place 30 years ago, I don't know how they're going to get the word out to the birth parents, and they don't live in Iowa and so forth and so on, but they can ask to be redacted. And as time goes on with current adoptions, that will be one of the things that a birth parent will be giving the option as we go through there. There's a form called the application to request a non-certified copy of original certificate of birth prior to adoption. I think it's $15. You request it from the Iowa Department of Public Health. And I've talked to some people who have done it already, and it was went very smoothly, got their original birth certificates. For some of them, it was information they already kind of had figured out because of DNA, but it's there. There's a little bit of a time lag. If the adoption took place prior to 1971, you can fill out this form immediately. All right. So we're talking, it happened 50 years or earlier. If it happened after January 1st of 1971, you will have to wait until next January to complete and to get yours. They're giving the more recent ones a little bit of a break in there. That was supposed to be at the end of my slideshow, but this is something I just added and I wasn't paying attention to where it went to. So we go from there. Okay. So I don't know if any of you have adoptions, and it is available to family members of the adoptee within the second degree of consanguinity, which is children, grandchildren, parents, grandparents, nieces, nephews, aunts, and uncles, which I'm not too sure they kind of understood what the second degree of consanguinity is, but we'll see what happens. This may get tweaked as goes on. So you can get, let's say you have a grandmother or grandparent that were adopted, you can try to get their non-certified one as we go through there. Okay. So today, having gone through that, this is what we're going to cover. We're going to cover a little bit of the history of the records, because that's going to explain to you why you may not find anything and what is it you're going to find. We're going to talk about the law, especially in terms of access to them and who has them. Then we're going to talk about what you're going to find in the records. And then most importantly, because this is what you guys really care about, is where do you find the records? Okay. And then most importantly, you're going to remember this date, which is July 1st, 1880, because there was a major shift in what kind of information and where they went on July 1st of 1880. So if you've got early Iowa family prior to 1880, you need to think, you're going to have to think on one side of it, and then you're going to have to think on the other side as we go through there. Okay. Now, the history of the records in Iowa, Right now, birth, death, and marriages are currently recorded first on the county level. And basically that's true with a little exception. They're always recorded on the county level. And then they are sent to the state registrar, the Iowa Department of Public Health, Bureau of Health Statistics. So, and to that day, that's how it goes. Prior to July 1st of 1997, the vital records were kept by the clerk of district court. Then in 1997, they were shifted to the county recorder's office. Both the responsibility and the records went to the county recorder's office. So the county recorder has the birth, death, and marriage records. They do not have the divorce records, and you cannot get into the adoption records at the county level. And then every once in a while, our legislature goes just a little berserk. Nothing new, they're still doing it. For a short period from 1904 to 1906, there was an attempt that in not being done on the county level, you did it on a township level. That did not work well. Okay, so the township was supposed to keep the records and then send them to the state. I think it didn't take them long to realize that the township did not have the bureaucracy to do this. And so we quit. So they went back to the county. So we've got some issues there. Okay. Marriage records begin as soon as a county is created, and compliance was very strong. Almost all marriages are recorded. It's just something they did. Very early records may not have been kept in a separate book. I'm talking really early records in the 1830s, 40s, maybe in the 50s. They may be intermixed with miscellaneous court records, because the clerk of court was keeping the records as we go through there. But you're almost always going to find a marriage record. Okay. But the caveat, when I said that July 1st, 1880, copies of marriage records prior to that date were not sent to the state. So the state has no copies of marriages prior to July 1st, 1880. They are strictly on the county level. All right. And the other thing is there was no law providing for the recording of births and marriages prior to July 1st of 1880. All right. So you are not going to find a death record in any official records prior to July 1st, 1880. The law did not provide for that. And I would say that you're not going to find a birth record prior to that, but there are exceptions that I'm going to talk about that later, which are called the delayed birth records. Okay. But just because we passed a law doesn't mean that people complied with it. Okay. So it's really spotty. A child dying in 1887, there's a good chance there's no death record, or in the early 90s. I use World War I as kind of the cutoff. After about the time of World War I, you're going to see almost all births and deaths are recorded. Okay. Prior to that, you just don't know what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't look. I always say you got to kiss a lot of frogs just to see if you're going to find that prince. You're going to have to look at a lot of records just to see if there's one in there as you go through there. Then again, our state legislature stepped in. And between 1921 and 1941, although the birth, death, and marriages were sent to the county, they were only supposed to take those and send them on to the state and not keep a copy at the county level. Some of the counties, went along with this new law. Other counties thought, this isn't going to work. So they kept copies of the records from 1921 to 1941. So in theory, those birth, death, and records for that 20-year period are only at the state level. In reality, you're going to find some at the county level. But it does explain. We have no idea what the state legislature, what their mindset was, but it didn't work well as we go through there. So that's kind of the laws, is the history of the records as we go through there. So now you understand why you're not finding a death record prior to July 1st of 1880, and why you may not find one after that. Birth records, and then we're going to talk about, and then you can find your marriage records. That's always good. Okay. Now, a couple of points you want to think about. If your family was here very, very early, and you're like, well, they've always lived in Jones County, which is up in, Northeast Iowa. It's an old county, or they were down in Southeast Iowa, because Iowa was settled, from the Mississippi going west. My family's always been in this county. The question is when was that county officially created? So you may say my family's always been in Jones County, but it turns out they were there before Jones County even existed. And the county seat was Dubuque County, not Jones County. So if they're here very, very early before the county was created, you need to think about who was the parent county and go look in the records there. Okay. So we can find that. And there's, I use Family Search a lot and their wiki. If you go into their research wiki and you type in the county of the one that you're interested in, always put Iowa because there's lots of counties by the same name, and they will give you a history and they will tell you when it was created and who the parent county was. Okay.
And I just put a link in the chat.
Good. And then, did they necessarily go to the courthouse of the county of their residence? They may have lived close to the border and they were going to, they didn't want to go to the county courthouse of their own county. They just slipped across the border and went from there. So that's an issue. We also have, occasionally we have people, Missouri did not have any waiting period. Whereas Iowa, I think, used to have a 3-day one. I don't know if they do or not. It's been so long since I've been married. I don't know those things anymore. But Missouri did not have a waiting period. So you'll find an awful lot of people from Southern Iowa got on the train or took the car and went down to Missouri and got married. So if you don't find them in Iowa, realize that doesn't mean that your family wasn't married. It's just not in Iowa. And then, of course, we always have the problem where sometimes the records just didn't get created. They got married, but we didn't get through there. So that's it. So those are some things that you need to consider when we're talking about this. Okay. Now, access to the records. Okay. Records at the county recorder's office are open to the public inspection, no matter when the event took place. Now, if I go into Polk County, which is Des Moines, the largest county, and I want to look at it, they're not going to let me look at they're on microfilm and they're not going to let me just troll through those things. But I can get a copy of anything and they charge me $5. It's a non-certified copy as long as I give them the information. Okay. The nice thing is they have scanned and digitized a lot of these. So if I go to Polk County, they'll go online and they'll get Dallas County for me because they've created a network as we go through there. So you might want to check before you start traveling across Iowa if your local county recorder's office is hooked into this and if they can get those records for you. And it's up to them to decide how much they want to charge you. But like I said, Polk County does $5. These are not certified. Certified's totally different thing. If you want a certified one, you have to be a qualified person, the person that was there, their parents, the children, so forth and so on. Okay. So that's the county level. Then, as I said, records at the state level are closed for 50 years if it's a death, 75 years if it's a marriage or a birth as we go through there. And I call it a split personality and we go through there. Now, after 50 or 75 years, non-certified copies of records are available from the state archives. But for the most part, they are online. So you don't even have to contact state archives. We can just print them off and go from there. Okay. The other thing that has changed recently was records of fetal deaths, in other words, stillborns or a child that died within a certain number of hours after delivery. They were permanently closed. And finally, somebody questioned it. One of our members, Ricky King, questioned that, and she got a hold of the state legislature that was in charge of the committee, and they got a hold of the Iowa Department of Public Health, and they're like, we have no idea why that law is in there. So that law was changed in 2019. So you can actually see a fetal death now and get a copy of that death certificate if one was created as we go through there. So we're out there kind of shaking the trees a little bit, trying to get things changed. And genealogists as a whole, there's a lot of us and we can have some clout as we go through there. Okay. So we're talking 50 years for deaths, 75 years for births and marriages. They are putting them online, but sometimes there's a couple year delay. So if you're in that, it's been 76 years, I should be able to find that birth certificate. I should be able to find that marriage record. It's been 52 years. I should be able to find that death record. It may not be online anymore yet, but you can get a hold of the state archives and they will make a copy for you as you go through there. Okay. Now, So now you know how to get a hold of them, you know, what your law and your access is. We're talking about it. So you want to know, what are we going to find in those records? Okay. Now, for the marriage records, it became more detailed in time. Very early on, all you saw was the couple, bride and the groom's names, who married them, and a date. That's it. That's all you got. You know, a marriage in 1865, something like that. Now, I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't care, and we want to find it. And if nothing else, you want to especially make a note of who the officiant was, who married them. If it's a justice of the peace, we're kind of out of luck. But if it's a ordained minister of some sort, then maybe you're going to start looking for those church records. Okay. And then the content could vary from county to county in those early records, because the county clerk of court got to create their own forms, you know, their own book they kept records in. So you may in Mahaska County find all sorts of information that when you're up in Marshall County, they don't have. So that's one of the things that you need to look at is don't despair. You might find something. But that magic date of July 1st, 1880, when the state stepped in, holy moly, we have got a gold mine now. So the marriage records included the parents of the bride and the parents of the groom, including the mother's maiden name, the birthplaces of the bride and the groom, how many times that person had been married. Was it their first marriage, their second marriage? Of course, it gives the names of the witnesses and it gives the officiant. Okay. And then over on the far left, sometimes you find the person who spoke up for him. I can't remember the phrase. You know, that helped create the license and said this person really is of age and so forth and so on. So you'll see that over there. Oftentimes, the witnesses and those people are related, and so you always want to make a note, because that, you know, that might be a hint as we go through there. Now, is the information on that record always accurate? You and I both know that sometimes they get it wrong. You know, the groom is filling out the information. They ask for his soon-to-be mother-in-law's maiden name, and he gets it wrong. All right, or he gets where they, you know, where his bride was born. You know, he gets it wrong. You notice I'm always accusing the male on this one. Sorry about that. But generally, it was the male that went down and filled it out as we go through there. So, but July 1st of 1880, this is where the gold mine happens, and I've done research, you know, like in New York and some other places, and you're just like, oh, why couldn't you do what Iowa did? That would be so nice as we go through there. Okay, a couple other asides. County marriage record versus the county marriage register. And what you see as these have been microfilmed and then digitized and scanned, the record has the information about the marriage taking place. In other words, it's sometimes we call them returns. It says, I married so-and-so on such and such a day, and then it's filled out. Okay, that's the record. The marriage register, for the most part, has the detailed information that you're looking for. Okay, all that other information. That's what was filled out when they came in to apply for a license. The record shows that the marriage actually took place. And sometimes the county didn't, they just did the register and they didn't worry about the record. Okay. The other thing that was pointed out to me by the state archivist is that those 1880 to 1920 records. So in 1880, it was done at the county. Then they sent a copy to the state. Sometimes the record on the county level has less information than the record sent to the state, because the state had a specific format that they wanted filled in, whereas the county recorder or the county clerk of court may have had his own records and it didn't ask for as much. So one of the things that you'll find is the county records doesn't have the parents' names on it, whereas the state record does. So we always want to be careful that we're looking for every possible record that we're going to find as we go through there. Okay. Yay, marriages. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this. It's a little, but here's an 1888 state marriage record, and this was sent to the Secretary of State, State Board of Health, by the county. And so these were the marriages of Dallas County for the year ending in 1888. They're done in chronological order, and you know, you got multiple marriages on a page. it's not like the marriage certificates that we see now. And so it's got, and I can't read my thing here. It gives the date that the license the license was created, and then it gives the person who was an informant, then the full name of the groom, where he lived at the time of the marriage, what he did for a living, his age, his race, where was he born. Then we come over and dad's name, mom's name, first marriage. And then we get full name of the bride, Eldora. That's an unusual first name. She lives in Dallas County. She's 19. She's white. She was born in Polk County, Oregon. I'm like, really? Born in Oregon, came back to Iowa. That's interesting. And her parents' name, it's her first marriage. And then they were married at the bride's house on September 28th. And then it gives the witnesses, which were James Miller and Etta Miller, that we get there. And but we don't know who married him. Doesn't give it that. And then it says the date of the record, and then it was not registered. They got married in September, and they didn't register it until January of the following year. As we go through there, and this is interesting. Eldora, it says her last name is Skinner. Well, her maiden name was not Skinner; it was Hardison. So, as I said, we get some errors as we go through here, and you always have to read the whole thing across. So that's an 1888 record as we come through. Okay. So I blew it up. I should have done this. By whom the affidavit was made and the consent was Peter Hardiman. Okay, we'll go from there. Oh, so she was 19 years old, and her father was the one that was giving permission and supplying the information as we go through there. Okay, I forgot I did it. So here's a state. Now this is the state marriage record that you and I are more familiar with when we do our own. And again, I blew it up a little bit. So here we go. And you get all the same information, but it's one sheet now as we go through there. It gives the full name of the groom, the residence, the occupation, place of birth, father's name, mother's name, bride's maiden name, if a widow. So she would have been recorded under her married name. And then we'd get the bride's maiden name, where she was born, where she's living, how old she is. She's been married once, where she's born down in Missouri, and then her father and mother's name, and where they were married, the witnesses, and then the clergyman who married him. So that's what you're looking for, folks. This is really nice as you go through there. And I can't tell you how many people have gone through these and went, what do you mean this is his second marriage? Didn't know there was another marriage on the list as we go through there. Holy moly. Okay. So that's your marriage records. And you can't ask for better information than that as we go through there. Now, the death records, and when I say 20th century records, that might be a little bit of exaggeration, but for the most part, starting in the early 1900s, we get the name, the birth date and place, the marital status and the name of the spouse, the parents' names and their places of birth, the place, date, and cause of death, who it gave the information, date and place of burial, and the undertaker's name. That's really a lot. Now, remember, in some of our classes, we talk about primary and secondary information, and some of this you have to take with a grain of salt, because the person who knew is dead. And so somebody who was not present at his birth is giving the birthplace and date, and it may be wrong. And we all know that our early ancestors, dates were kind of a flexible situation. So we can't really be sure when they were born, but come close. Parents' names and places of birth. Oftentimes they will say unknown, especially if it's an immigrant, because the parents may not have come, and whoever's filling out this information is doing the best they can, but they never met their grandparents and were doing that. Date and place of burial. I have found a couple of things which is really interesting, is when the death certificate was filled out, they said, we're going to bury him in this cemetery. And then they changed their mind after the death certificate was created. And if you look at the obituary in the paper and so forth and so on, buried in a wholly different place, changed, whoever gave the information At some point they changed it. And the undertaker's name is always good because you never know what you're going to find from the undertaker as we go through there. Now, this is a 1901 death record from the county of Alameda. So you notice you're not seeing a whole lot of information here. It's got the sex, it's got the age, it's got the occupation, the date of death, and whether they were single, married, or widowed. You know, you're not getting parents' names or anything else. This is a county record from county of Alameda as we go through there. So the county record's not so much help, whereas the state one's going to be a lot better as we go through there. Okay. So here's a death register. Again, it's done on the county level, and we get the whole thing. It's I'm leading over there. I think it's the place of death. Then the full name: female, white, married, date of birth, age, housewife, birthplace was born in Boone County. Father was Hiram Sander. Father was born in Kentucky. Mother was Muriel. Muriel was born in Ohio. And then we go, this is goes across 2 pages. So we have to get the second page. Who's informing us? Date of death, cause of death. Oops, cirrhosis of the liver, tuberculosis of lungs, creeping paralysis, cerebral hemorrhage, paralysis. So every once in a while you're like, I have no idea what that means. We have a book called well, you can Google it too. You can put in a cause of death, they'll come up with something. And then who's the attending physician, place of burial, and then the undertaker's name. So that's quite a bit of information in 1924, 1925 as we go through there. So kind of nice. If I were to go back, let's see this backspace. Let's see. You notice it goes O'Keefe, Ostrander, O'Brien, Ostrander. So oftentimes these county records were kept kind of in alphabetical order. So they had a section for the O's, and then they are done in chronological order with the O's. They have a section for the B's, a section for the S's, and that's how they would record the death. So they're not in total chronological order for every death in the county. It's chronological order within the alphabet of the first letter of the name. So that's something to remember as we go through there. Okay. Now here's this. Now that was the record for Mary O'Keefe at the county level. This is what was sent in to the state. And so they created a standard certificate of death with the state as we go through there. Basically, all the information is the same. It's just in it's in a format that you and I are used to as we go through there. Okay. There's some things that are not filled out. One is the length of the town where the death occurred, how long in the US, if a foreign birth. So, well, she was born in the United States, so that wasn't an issue as we go through there. It's in a way, it's easier to read this as we go through there. But I have looked at those length of residence in the city or town. That gives me a hint of how long that family's been there, and I can go back. I have never seen the how long in the US of foreign birth filled out, but I've never actually been looking for it. So this is a 1924 certificate, and we'll go from there. And I always wonder how they do the 68 years, 8 months, and 18 days. They really have to work hard at that, because it's not like they got a computer where they could go in and fix it as we go from there. Okay. Now, birth records. If you found a birth record early on, basically all you got was the child's name, the date and place of birth, and the father's name and age, and the mother's name and age. That's what you got. Then as time goes on, they start to ask more and more information that are kind of health related. Some of them are health related. If it's a multiple birth, if there were twins, is this the first or the second? Is the child legitimate? How many children has the mother had prior to this? How many children are surviving? So again, we get some information on there. So here's 1921 up from Poweshiek. Full name was Virginia Jane. Female, was not a twin, triplet, or other. Number in order of birth. Yes, they was legitimate. November 24th, 5th, 1921. Roy J. Kriegel, living in Brooklyn, Iowa. He was born in Iowa. That's not a whole lot, but he was 25. And then Julia Sedanica, maybe, living in Brooklyn, Iowa. She's 24, born in Iowa, White House housewife. Number of children to this mother, including the present birth, 1. So this is her first child. And how many are now living? 1. And then I hereby certify I attended the birth of this child who was born alive at 5:15 p.m. Dr. And whatever, as we go through there. So there's his information. And then the registrar did it. So 1921, right? Quite a bit of information as we go through there. But then we keep going. How many months was the mother pregnant? Was it spontaneous? Was it operative? Did they have a episiotomy or a cesarean section? Are there deformities? In what month was the mother first examined? Which is kind of interesting. So this happens to be my brother-in-law, who was born in 1942. He's still alive, but because of the 75-year privacy rule, he's 79. I can look at his birth certificate all I want. Born in Polk County at Mercy Hospital. She was in the hospital for 1 day. They have lived in the community for 25 years. They lived at 1841 Des Moines Street. Okay. Martin Joseph, he's male. She was pregnant for 9 months. Is the mother married? Yes. Gives me the date, hour of birth. Father and mother. He's in the Army. It's 1942. So we're going there. Mother's name and address for mailing registration. So we go through there. She signed it. Date received. We go. Then it says, was blood test taken? Yes. When was it taken? By whom? Was this a spontaneous birth? Yes. She did have an episiotomy. Was the child asphyxiated? No. In what month of pregnant was the mother first examined? Her first month. Is there any congenital malformations? No. Was there a birth injury? No. Were eyes treated as prescribed by law? Yes. So a lot more information that you're going to find out as you go through there. I just think it's really interesting. My birth certificate down in Kansas doesn't have near that much stuff on it. So we'll go from there. All right. So now we know what's in them. Where are you going to find them? And this is the challenge sometimes. Okay. Now, they are in book forms to a certain extent, just abstracts, never the full thing. We don't have copies. So if you were to come into the Iowa Genealogical Society Library, or the State Historical Society of Iowa, which we call SHISHI, they have abstracts done by the local societies. The very first projects that we asked local societies to do back in the 1970s, and which we published, were the marriage records. Now, that was the very first thing we asked them to do. But even if you find anything in an abstract form, and this isn't just for Iowa records, you always want to look at that original record because it's got a lot more information. Plus, the human hands have handled this, and human hands make mistakes. So we do have them in book form that lets you kind of get through them as you want to. Okay. We have the county records on microfilm. The Utah Genealogical Society, which is the family history library, and now it's Family Search, came in and microfilmed the early records of all 99 counties. And the Iowa Genealogical Society has those, okay? They begin with the very earliest records, and then they went as far as the county let them go, So sometimes they go into the 1940s, sometimes they go into the early 1900s. It's like they would go until somebody said, oh, you can't do that anymore. So we go from there. Again, those films are available at the Iowa Genealogical Society and SHISHI. These are the basis for this Family Search online records for counties. So although you can, well, I will talk about that in a minute. So this is the basis of what they are. Okay. So you can look them, see if there's something printed. You can see what's on microfilm, but I know what you all want to do. You want the records online. We understand that. Okay. So the county marriage records, the ones that went to the county and came, they are at familysearch.org. So what you do is you go into familysearch.org, create your account. It's free. Once you've done that, you up on the homepage up on top, there's a search. So you touch search, then you click records. You'll see a US map. You'll select Iowa. They're just off the thing. And it'll take you into their indexed records. Now, these were abstracted from the microfilm. You can search by parents' names, by maiden names, all sorts of things, by just first names and a date. It's amazing what you can do. You will see the abstract. Their volunteers sat down and typed in all the information. The images for many of the counties are only available if you are at a local family history center or at an affiliate library, which is the Iowa Genealogical Society. It's county by county. So some of the counties you can't see, and for some of you that have ever done this, you find it's, marriage records for Hardin County. I'm not sure Hardin isn't a great example. And then over on the side, they show a little camera, which means they've been scanned and digitized. And then above it is a little key. And if you click on it, it tells you where you have to go to see it. Other times you just get a camera and you can see the originals as you go through there. Okay. They're actually, for marriage records, there used to be 2 data sets. I'd have to think about this. 2 data sets. And each of them had a couple million names in them. They may have consolidated these. I didn't look last night and I should have. Now they are, how should I say this? When they say 2 million records, that's not 2 million marriages. The groom's name is one record. The bride's name is one record. The father's name of the groom, the father's name of the bride, so forth and so on. So you get 6 records off of one marriage if it's a later one, post 1880. Okay, so we come there. So, and then you always want to look for who the witnesses are and who officiated. Now remember, July 1st, 1880 marriages are only going to be found in these county records. So you're going to have to go to familysearch.org to find them. Okay, so here we go. When I went into search, it said Iowa County Records, 1880 to 1992. I'm not sure why they said 1880. There's a marriage record. Well, marriage record, or that was a death record I was looking at. I got deaths and I got marriages mixed up here. Your death records are going to start in 1880, but here's a marriage record that I was looking at. And I put in the guy's name and Frederick Krueger, so forth and so on. To see the actual one, they tell me I have to go to the Family History Center or go into an affiliate library to see those, which is kind of frustrating as we go through there. If you have difficulty doing that, if you don't have a family history center, which is at a Latter-day Saints church around you, and you really want to see this and you're not going to be able to get access to it, we have a volunteer researchers, and for a reasonable fee, we'll find it and make a copy and send it to you. So you can always get a hold of our research people as we go through there. Okay. But you notice the Iowa County marriages were 2.3 million, and the last update was in October of 2020. So they keep adding on to them. So that's the county marriage records. So if I go in there, okay, now here's the state copy. All right. Where do I find those? Ancestry has them, 1880 to 1945, as we go through there. Okay. So you can actually get all those marriages from 1880 to 1945 on ancestry.com. Pre-1880, you're stuck with the county records and we got to go to Family Search. 1880 to 1945, Ancestry has them. Okay. And that happens to be, let's see. Oh, that's Clem and Leona. That's my husband's aunt and uncle as we go through there. Okay. So Ancestry has got all the ones from 1880 to 1945. Okay. Now, this is weird. Okay. There are also from 1938 to 1941, they are supposed to be online at familysearch.org. They are not accessed, indexed. Okay. They're supposed to be out. They're supposed to be indexed, and for some reason they are not. So if you go into the catalog, you go into search catalog, and I type in keyword Iowa marriage records 1938 to 1941. They are organized by county, but they are not alphabetized in the county. So this is where you earn your, you earn your stripes if you want to do that. Why would you look in here? If you can go to ancestry.com and look at them. So, you might think about that as we go through ancestry.com. All right. One of the things I was commenting on is back here, the county marriage records. They tell you have to go to an affiliate library to see them, and you can see them online. Yeah, you could also look at them on microfilm, but I don't think we're gonna. Why would you want to do that if you could see them online? So we go through there. We've got that. Okay, so we've got some odds and ends situation as we go through here. Okay, so here's the catalog entry that I was talking about, that 1938. As we go through there, and they're done county by county by county. So there's the Adair County, Clinton County, Dubuque County, and you notice the format's got a little camera, so you can click on those and start looking at them as you went through there. But like I said, these have been done in Ancestry. I'd look there first, and then if you can't find them, come back here and see what we can find. Okay, so that's the marriage records. Okay, this birth records online. Now the state birth records. And last night I'm like, what the heck? They are very proud on Family Search in their wiki that talks about, they have Iowa birth records 1921 to 1942. And if you click on their link, it just says, oh, there's a collection, but there is no search box. And I cannot access the collection. So I have no idea what has happened to those state birth records from 21 to 42. All right. And so I've put a request into Family Search to ask why, what's going on here. Okay. The county birth records, they again have been transcribed by the volunteers at FamilySearch.org. They start with the county records in 1880 and they go through 1935. So some of those counties, it's not quite through 35. They might start from 1928, so forth and so on. So again, if you have to, you'll find the transcriptions, and the images are online at FamilySearch.org or through a family history center or an affiliate library. But sometimes you get to see them. It's very weird. Okay. There are indexes for birth records, 1904 to 1906. And then 1909 to 1921. That 1904 to 1906, you understand what's, the thing about the townships. And then 1909 to 1921, and then they're cut off because of the goofy law with the legislature. So if you go to iowaculture.org, you scroll down to the bottom, and there's a thing called State Historical Society of Iowa. And then next page, you'll see a thing. It says find birth, death, and marriages. And if you scroll down, there's a county, by county, it's a PDF file, and it's alphabetized, so you can go in and find them, and you can order the certificate from the state archives if you really need to. Okay. So this is what I was looking for. So it's done by county. So you have to know what county we're talking about as we go. That's the 1904 to 1906. And then the other one is the 1909 to 1921. Okay. And that's what you see. If you use Microsoft, you use a Windows product, if you hit Control and the F key, you'll get a little search box, and you can type in your last name, and you will get the name of any birth child by that name or the mother's maiden name. And I know that Apple does something very similar. I just don't know what the search box is for that. Okay. So here's the state birth records, the second half. So you would choose Benton County, look at their PDF, do a search as we go through there. Okay, see what you can find. And you notice over there, it says certificate number and box number. If you're going to order these from the state archives, that's the information they need, because it tells them which box down in the bowels of the archives it's in, and then the certificate number. They're in certificate order as we go through there. Okay. Step 3, they have a place, a link on how to order them and so forth. And quite frankly, we have been known for our researchers to go across the state archives is in the state historical building, and it's right across the street from the Iowa Genealogical Society. Our researchers will go over and, they charge us 50 cents to get it. And we can maybe try to get something for you that way, and you'll get it right away. Okay. Now, delayed birth certificates. Okay. What happened to my ancestry? That is very odd. Why do I not see? I don't tell you about ancestry. What happened here? Okay. Because Ancestry has now done births, and they've kind of intermixed them, and it's very odd. Let's talk about delayed birth certificates. Okay. That is a certificate issued after the normal period for recording a birth. You're supposed to record a birth within so long a time of a birth. But I always laugh. My husband's aunt was born in the early 1930s. She was number 11 of 13 children. And evidently, the doctor forgot to record her birth, which nobody knew until she graduated from nursing school, was going to join the Peace Corps, needed a passport, needed a birth certificate, and there's no birth certificate. So what did she do? She took her mother to the county courthouse, and Grandma Minnie said, yep, I was there, and this is when she was born. And they filled out an affidavit, and they created a delayed birth certificate for Irene as she go there. Okay. So all pre-1941 delayed birth certificates, okay, births prior to 1941, I should say, have been scanned. Ancestry did them, and then in conjunction with Family Search and so forth and so on, you will find there's 540,000 of them. Okay, you will find them online at FamilySearch.org. And then you will also find them online at Ancestry. Now, the interesting thing about Ancestry is they are mixed in with the regular, if you says delayed birth certificates, it says there are like 9 million of them. You're like, no, I don't think we had 9 million delayed birth certificates. We only had 540. They have got the delayed birth certificates intermixed with the regular birth certificates. So that 1942 one that I showed you for my brother-in-law, it's in the database called a delayed birth certificate. It was not delayed. It was done immediately upon his birth. So we're not sure exactly what's going on some of this. Okay. But they have been scanned. Now, the key on this is to remember, I told you that there is no provision for birth certificates prior to July 1st of 1880. So if somebody was born in 1876, his mother could not go down to the courthouse and record his marriage or his birth. However, if at some point in that man's life he felt he needed a birth certificate, he could go to the county courthouse and have his 1876 birth recorded. So you're going to find birth in the delayed that are the person was born prior to 1880. He could not have had an original birth certificate because there was no law allowing for that, but he could get one after the fact. So we're going to do that. Now, on these records, some birth records do not include the actual images, and those tend to be the later ones that have Social Security numbers on it. So for my husband's aunt, born in the 1930s, and she did this in the 1960s, she asked that, they asked for Social Security numbers, and it's on there. So you do not get to see the documentation that was submitted, the complete documentation as we go through there. You just see a transcription of the information, but the delayed birth certificates are great as we go through there. Okay. So here's a 1860 birth registered in 1943. The man is 83 years old, provided he got his birth right. I declare that upon I am Lincoln John Day, when he was born, and had to be notarized. He submitted an insurance policy that was taken out in 1894. He submitted the old age pension tax record, which we've talked about, that was created in 1934. He got his marriage record from 1893 that had his age on it. And then he had a hospital record from 1942. It was a current one that he had filled in his birth date as he go through there. And the birth on all of those shows you what's going, and it gives you mother's maiden name and the father's name. And then the additional information. I'm not sure what that means. Harry D. somebody, clerk of court. Evidently he said that was, he knew the person. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. And then they issued him a birth certificate when he was 83 years old. Isn't that cool? You know, I'm not sure why he thought he needed one, but he did. All right. Now here's an 1877 one, again in 1942. I, Andrew Rue, so forth and so on. I am 64 years old, and I am doing this for the child Albert Hugo Smith. All right. Now, Andrew is 81 years old. All right. And what he's saying is he is the uncle of Albert, and he knows this information because he's an uncle. And so he gives the father's name, the mother's name, all the other information as we go through there, including the birth date of his nephew. And so, you know, he's 81 years old, and he was willing to go down to the courthouse in Dubuque and take care of this. So now we have a delayed birth certificate. So kind of cool. This is my brother, my husband's aunt, Irene Rose, born 1932, so forth and so on, mother's name, father's name. But I cannot see the information that she submitted because of, I think there's a social security number involved in something like that. Okay. So that's my delayed birth certificate. Now, as I said, and I kind of left this off in my whatever, Ancestry also has the same birth records that Family Search has. They go from up through 1944. So they have the delayed, and then they have the marriage record, or they have the current ones. And again, I have to contact Ancestry and say, why do you have it in the delayed birth records? These are not delayed birth records. So I don't know if they'll ever fix it. All right, so there's your marriage, your births, and now we have the death records. And again, Family Search has them from 1904 to 1951. Now that collection is not complete. You know, not every birth up through 1951 is there, but these are the state records, not the county records. So they tend to be more, you know, they start in 1880 and come forward, and Ancestry has them from 1921 to 1961. So I misspoke. I said the state records that are online, they don't start until 1904. So those 1880 to 1904 are not done yet, and they will be done. And the same thing for the Ancestry. And the logic behind that was the fetal death records were interspersed with the regular death records until 1921. And so when they scan these, they're like, well, we can't put them online because it has the fetal death records. Well, now the fetal death records are open and available. So they're going to go back and they're going to make the pre-1921 death records available to you as you go through there. Okay. But again, as I have said, you don't necessarily get a lot of death records prior to, let's say, 1915, but it doesn't mean you aren't going to find some as you go through there. The county death records are online at Family Search. They start with that July 1st, 1880. They are indexed and typed transcriptions. Some of their images, depending on the county, some of these you can access at your home. Other counties have to be accessed at affiliate library or a family history center. Okay. And it has to do with the paperwork. The original custodian of the records, which is the county recorders and so forth and so on, has to give permission for those to be, the scanned images to be online. Well, evidently Polk County said fine, but other counties have said no. So it's I don't know if they're going to go back, and or maybe they just, not that the county said no, they just never asked, and if they don't have the paperwork, they're not willing to do it as we go through there. Okay, so here's a state record. This happens to be my husband's grandfather, and it's a full death record, and gives me the Teresa Klingsice and this is 100% German as we go through there, died in 1932 of carcinoma, of cancer as we go through. Okay, so that's the state record, and it's available online, so I can see those. Family search, I put this one in. I always use Smith. Wapello, this is a county record. He died in, when did he die? I must have cut it off. Oh, 1885. But to see it, I have to go to a family history center or a family search affiliate library. So I don't get to see the actual death certificate. I can just get this information as we go through there. He's a traveling salesman. Okay. And then you notice down in the corner, they have a little thing that says similar historical records, William G. Smith in Find a Grave. Now, we always have to be careful about that, but you can go looking for it as you want to do that. So Wapello, those records have been microfilmed, but they are not, the images aren't available to you. But Polk County, they are available to you. You can see the original document. So it's a little bit of a challenge as we go through here, but we can find them and see what we can do about it. It just takes a little patience as we go through. All right. Okay. Divorce records. None of us have divorces in our families, right? Right. Okay. They are at familysearch.org, and there's 2 sets of them. And if you look in their sets, one says Iowa Common Historical Society of Iowa Common Divorce Records, 1906 to 1937. And you put their name in, and we get the information as we go through. Okay. And this is what we get. Here's the Register of Divorces, full name of the husband, color, age, nationality, date of marriage, number of prior marriages. And unfortunately, Jackson is guilty of desertion, according to his wife, Emma. And we get the nationality and the date of the divorce and to whom the divorce is granted, husband or wife. That's just kind of the basics information, but these are indexed. So now you know when it took place and what county it took place, and you can get court records from the county clerk of court. And sometimes they have family secrets that you really didn't want to know about. So we go from there, but we have to look and see what happens. So that's a 1990 Register of Divorce from the state records there. Then Family Search supposedly also has 1938 through 1952. There are 32 volumes of these. Only 2 are digitized. None of them are indexed. So if you want to locate them, you go to their homepage, you hit search, catalog, Iowa. They're not done by county. They're done on Iowa. And you see the first one, which was 1906 to 37, and the second one, which is 1938 to 52. And then you'll see that it's got all of them. And you notice only 2 of them, volume 93 from 1940 and volume 94 from 1941 have been scanned and digitized, and you see the camera off to the right. All right. The other ones are not there. Now, why they chose those 2, somebody may have specifically asked them to do that. It's just a matter of time on these of just being slow and see what you can find. If you really, the divorces were always listed in the paper. So, I mean, if you think your family has a divorce and you'd like to find more information, you can go into, well, I won't go into newspapers. You got newspapers.com. You've got Ancestor Hunt, which will have links to free ones. And Iowa has an awful lot of free newspapers because of the county, the libraries have arranged to have them scanned and digitized and put online. And so this will take you to that. So if you know where your family was, you can get the newspapers, see if there was a divorce that happened as we go through there. And so I did kind of go into one of those, and this is what it was. This is 1940. This made me smile. Lawrence is 21. Irene was 15. They were married in Mills on the November 1st. And actually, you really can't see it very well, but up on top, it says annulment as we go through there. So person to whom an annulment was granted to the wife Okay. Was the case contested? No. Why? Because she's only 15 years old. I think dad and mom may have had something to do with this. That was the cause, was non-age. How long would the duration of this marriage? Was 1 day. So evidently cooler heads prevailed at some point. And Lawrence and Irene are no longer married. That's okay. Oops, I lost a screen here. Let me go back. I had another one, I thought. Oh, yeah, here it is. I'm sorry. This one is Florence Shuffler looking for a marriage. That was their first marriages. She got the divorce. Was the court contested? No. Here's the date. Desertion. Number of minor children affected by decree, 7 years, or 7 children. Was alimony granted? Yes. And the duration of this marriage was 21 years and 2 months. So you get a little more information about some of these as you go through. So that's over there. So I have gone through all this, and we got lots of questions in the chat, it looks like. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop sharing, and I am going to go into the chat. Sherry, have you been watching the chat? What do we got going?
I have been.
Okay.
So,
what do we got in here? Let's see.
So Paula had asked about, let's see.
Well, first I'm going to say, Pam asked, is it okay to take a screenshot of that image? And the answer is yes, but we're going to send you this PowerPoint and you're going to get the
that's
screenshot.
What I told her.
Okay. Okay, good. That's it.
Pam was also asking about the marriage records where they created at the state level. It's not a copy of the county record.
No, they were created at the county level on a format that the state wanted and then sent to the state. Yep. Okay. The state they didn't fill in any blanks. They just took what was sent to them by the county.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Pam had shared that, during the pandemic that you could sit in the parking lot at some of the family history centers and hit their Wi-Fi and get your document.
And actually you could do that in the parking lot of the Iowa Genealogical Society until last month.
Well, we opened up.
Did you open it again? Yeah. Okay.
No, we opened the library up.
Library, you could come in.
And you could come on in.
So. We had all sorts of people that occasionally were in our parking lot, including the Des Moines police. I'd be there late at night and I'd come out and I'd see the police car parked over there and he's on our Wi-Fi. I'm like, come closer to the door. You'll get a better, you get better reception. So that's it.
I was confused about the images you were showing regarding the county and state records. I think it was for the marriages because I thought I'd heard you say that they were created on the county level, but what I saw, it looked like a ledger.
Yes, it was.
It seemed to have just as much detail.
It did.
And then you went on to the state record. So I got
okay. And that what they did is they created that ledger. Okay. And once a year they would send that ledger to the state. Okay. So they had a copy and the state had a copy. Okay.
And so what the county has and what the state has would be identical?
In that case, it should be identical.
Okay.
Then at some point, the state had a form, the 1-sheet form that they wanted filled out. Okay. And sometimes, and the county, even those registers, that was the state's register. Now the county may have created a separate register and created their own format. And so you might get something, like I said, they may have left information off of that. Okay. So you always want to look, if you can find the county record or the state record for these later ones post 1880, you always want to look for the state one because that's the most complete record you're going to find. Okay.
Okay.
All right. What else we got? I didn't.
Linda just shared that she regretted reading her parents' divorce decree.
Oh, yeah, it is. I was helping somebody and he was the second child. And when his parents got divorced, the father took the boys and they never saw their mother. And so he was just kind of curious and we ultimately found it. And what had happened is the mother said she didn't want to be married. She had the one child. She didn't want to have that second child. I'm like, oh, dear God. But also the mother also was not in Wisconsin at the time of the hearing. She was in Washington, D.C. And so you don't really know how accurate those statements were. That was the husband's version of it as you go through there. But it's tough. My great grandmother got divorced. Actually, both of them did. She got married when she was 14 years old to a 26-year-old. By the time she was 21, she'd had 5 children, 2 had died, and he's an alcoholic. So when she's 26 or 27, she finally gets divorced from him. And it was non-support, and he did not come to the hearing and did not do anything else. And there was no surprises in that one. So we go from there. But it's tough. It's tough. What else do we got? I haven't.
That's the end of the comments. So anybody have any?
Yeah, some questions, or maybe we could go in and look for things if you really had it. Yeah, Kathleen. Nope, you muted. There you go.
I was just typing in my question, just as you said, there wasn't another one. One of the things I've been just sort of playing around with this, haven't really gotten deeply into it, but it just amazes me sometimes something will pop up and it's like, ooh, wow, I didn't know that. And it leads to something else.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I found now, I grew up in Iowa. My maternal grandparents lived in Iowa. My paternal grandparents lived in Iowa. So most of those records are going to be in Iowa.
Right.
The interesting thing was it's Hancock County and Crawford County.
Okay.
One of the interesting things I've been finding is looking at US Census records. Now, the Genealogy Society for Iowa is only going to be associated with vital records for Iowa, not like census, not like land ownership or anything like that, right?
I'm not sure what you mean about the Genealogy Society. You're talking about us?
You,
Iowa Genealogical Society.
You're a new entity to me. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're only going to have access to the microfilm, which is what, we've got rolls of it and nobody uses anymore because it's all online for for the Iowa records. Okay. Obviously, an awful lot of us have people that are not from Iowa. And so, we always try to help people and say, oh, if you're from Illinois. But I will tell you, one of the best things to do is to go into, Family Search Wiki, Research Wiki, type in the state that you care about, vital records, and they will walk you through all the information that you want to know about those particular records. So you will find in Minnesota that to this day, they do not send a copy of the marriage records to the state. They're strictly on a county level. But then they also give you a link to a website. It's MOMS, which is Minnesota Online something or other. I don't know what MOM stands for, but it's an index for all of the counties and their marriages. So you can type in the bride and a groom's name and you can find out when that marriage took place, what county it took place, and you can order a marriage record from Minnesota. They do the same thing from Illinois. Illinois, they did not send a copy of the marriage record to the state until 1964. So prior to 1964 in Illinois, you have to go to the county to find the marriage records. And they will walk you through all of the state laws. And then they have links to places to get into, to find them online or to order them and so forth and so on. The Family Search Wiki is just, it's like getting lost in paradise. Yeah, it's just wonderful. Just wonderful.
Okay, I've got a question. Like my parents were married 1934. Mm-hmm. Ironically, they never said where they were married or how they were married. Yeah. I'm thinking it was probably just a small little family marriage, and I'm going to guess it was either in Hancock County or Crawford County.
Right.
Now, if I go to 1934 and look under either county, I might find the information.
Well, actually, if you go into Family Search, search records, and then you'll get a map of the world, and you click on United States, and then you say, I want to look at Iowa. If you go into there and you just put in the bride's name and the groom's name and a marriage date, or if you want to, you can. That's just kind of a year. A year. That's a general one. You can also choose to go down and choose the marriage records, which are 19. What am I looking at? Oh, those are the county records, 1838 to 1934. But you don't have to figure out the county. You can just put in the name, and they'll come up. Okay. They will look all of them. Do you have access to Ancestry?
I have put off joining that right now
Well,
because
then you need to, are you a member of Iowa Genealogical Society?
well, that was another question.
Spend the $35 and then you can go in and you can see the marriage records online and just search all you want in Ancestry. So that's it. But they will be in there. Okay. They will be in there.
Okay,
So,
okay,
so just to be clear, there is a free account for Ancestry and much of the indexes are available to you
Well,
on a
sure.
free account. You just can't see the images.
Yeah.
So that's the typical
Mhm.
caveat there if you want to see
Yeah.
the images, but it would let you search the indexes to say, oh, there is a record.
Now
and
do I care?
decide. And that would help you, especially if you're going to go through the Ancestry Library Edition through IGS.
Yeah, but Family Search will have it too. We have special interest groups and we have monthly meetings, and Sherry runs the one for Ancestry. And so she is the Ancestry guru. She knows how to make everything
I
make.
know how to find
Okay.
things.
She can find things. The key is you don't have to, the key is you need to know how you find things, and then we go from there. So you should be able to find through Family Search that marriage record. Okay. At least the information. And then if you can get into Ancestry. You live out in Nevada,
I
don't
live in Reno, and the fire is north of Reno. It's in the
Okay.
California side.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was gonna say somebody, the Family History Center has got it. They've got to have a Family History Center at the
They
LDS
do.
Church. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do. They
Yeah.
do.
So you can just stop by there, and they have Ancestry there too.
Oh, okay.
Yes. All of the family.
Many of the Family History Centers also have Fold 3 subscriptions. I mean, they just have sometimes they have the whole set.
Newspapers.com, any of that stuff. So, you check and see what happens. But yeah, they're great.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for
yeah.
the information.
Okay. Who else has got something? Somebody. So I know what you guys are going to do this afternoon.
We're all going to sit in our air conditioning
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And see what you can find. Okay. Has anybody on a marriage record or birth record found something that they kind of went, whoa? No. Said,
I found one of those records that said this was his third marriage, and we're like, well, we knew of one, so then I had to go digging for that. It turned
Second
out
marriage.
it was actually his first that we didn't know about. We knew about the second one.
So and the number of children, and on those birth records, they asked how many children, and sometimes that can be problematic because they may be counting pregnancies as opposed to actual births, and we may have had miscarriages. Sometimes it's like that 1900 and 1910 census question. Sometimes it's just a little confusing, and you're like, I don't have that number. I can't identify what all these children are, and so we go from there. So that can be an issue as you go through there. Okay, all right.
I have an interesting marriage situation, which wasn't necessarily what was contained in the record, but my grandparents lived in Fairfield and Mason City for a short time, and both of their daughters were born in Fairfield.
Mhm.
And I could not find a marriage record for them anywhere. And my grandfather had actually come from West Virginia and had traveled eastward. And then eventually I stumbled across them in a marriage index in California in 1964.
Oh.
So because the 1940 census says they're married. Anyway, I was at a public library when I discovered this, and I almost fell out of my chair, and I was laughing hysterically when I discovered that they had, because my grandmother was the one that was the informant on the 1940 census.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandparents went to a lot of trouble to celebrate they basically got married on what would have been their 25th wedding anniversary.
Uh-oh.
So,
Okay. Robert has said he's found quite a number of marriage records that were never sent to the state or the county from a great uncle who was a preacher. And if he didn't get paid, he didn't send them in. So the person got the license, but the marriage was never recorded by him, which that's tough. I was looking for a marriage for my brother-in-law's grandparents, and I see where the license was taken out. You've got all that information, but the rest of it, where it says when it took place and so forth and so on, was never filled in. And so I'm assuming they got married, you know, and I've often thought I should go over to St. Ambrose, which is the Catholic church here, and see if they have the record. But occasionally, whoever officiated at the marriage just kind of forgot to send it back. And so you don't really have the information that you want to have as you go through there. And the other thing is you could take a license out in one county and get married in another. So that might be one of the reasons why I didn't find it. You know, they got married somewhere else, but they took their license out in Polk County. So
and that could be the answer to Linda's question, because she
Yeah.
said, you know, they got married in Johnson County, but you can't find it.
Yeah. Yep. They're married by justice of the peace. I don't know, Robert, that was that's a hardcore uncle. Do we want to claim him? And that could cause problems all over the place in future years when somebody's trying to get a pension or so forth and so on. They can't prove that they were married, you know, as you go through there. I have somebody, he was a Civil War veteran. He ended up dying very soon after that. Or I shouldn't say that. Civil War pension. He died in 1892. He was in poor health. He had been getting his $8 pension forever because he was shot during the war. And his wife was trying to arrange it so that she could get a pension. And when she filled out the first application, she said she was married in Pennsylvania by somebody. And the problem is Pennsylvania didn't keep records back in 1860 something. There just are no records as you go through that. When we can't get to it, what she did is then all of a sudden she submitted a Polk County marriage record from 1878. And it's got the seal and everything else on it. This is, years after all 4 of her children are born. Okay. She submitted it. If you go into the Polk County records, there is no record of that marriage. I think she found a sympathetic clerk of court to fill out that and give it to her so she could claim the pension. I don't know what to say. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh my. Pamela says they got married in the county south of where they lived, and they got married 4 counties north of where they lived. Gee, manentles. So that's why having a statewide index really helps rather than have to go county by county by county. So we go from there. Okay. All right.
Well, and it kind of shows that if you make your search too finite, sometimes you miss those records.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always suggest you start broad and then narrow down as you start stumbling onto stuff.
That's it. So, okay. All right. Okay.
And especially if you've got family that were on the borders of the states, if a state the neighboring state had a more lenient marriage age rule, they might have gone across the state.
Right.
Might have not just been across the county line. They might have traveled
as you go through there. Council Bluffs ended up in Omaha, or Davenport ended up over in Rock Island, that kind of thing. Linda said, it says, I was able to get my grandmother's death certificate from 1989 from the funeral home. One thing about the funeral home is those are private records. They have no need. They do not have to share them with you. And it's very nice that they did that. They are actually, the death record is now oftentimes created by the funeral home on some of these. But if you get a funeral home that will cooperate and do that, that's nice. But they're under no obligation, because it's a private business, and that's a private records as you go through there. Okay. And we go from there. I'm just looking at this. Okay. It seemed like I have a lot of, I'm just, especially before photocopiers. I'm just kind of going through there. Yeah. Okay. Got the uncle. And Robert, I got to go find those ones on IGS. Where was he? Where did he live?
He lived over in the Marcus and Jolly and over in that area.
Okay.
I believe that Cherokee.
Okay.
I believe he was preaching in that area at the time when those records were generated. those little pieces of paper. I don't remember exactly what they looked like, but they were all the same.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we need to, I know we've got them. We just need to pull them out, and those need to be scanned and put online. That would be a
Be a good
major,
project.
major project, and have them indexed so that people can find them as we
There
go
weren't
through
that
them.
many of them, maybe 10 or 15.
Hey, but for those
don't
10 or
remember.
15 families, that's a big deal.
But
That's
you
it.
have them.
Yeah, and I said, we'll just find, I gotta find them. They're on the shelf somewhere. I know that. So we'll go from there. So we got things that we don't know what we've got. They are in the process of going through the card catalog and going through the shelves to make sure that everything on the shelf is in the card catalog, and they are in the process that they're going to put that card catalog. We're using a new software program, and it will be online as we go through there. But it's amazing the stuff that we've got. We've got 60. See, we started in 1964, so that's close to 60 years worth of stuff. And we try to be very careful about not losing things, but occasionally we lose them. So we'll go from there. Okay, it's all right.
Oh, we lose them because we didn't record them. So
That's
we
what I'm
have-
saying. They're still
have-
there. We
we
just
have
lost
stuff
all
on the
records.
we have
shelves
stuff on
that we
the
didn't-
shelf that we can't tell you that it's there because it's not in the catalog.
Yeah. And that's why we have a tendency to go to a shelf and just kind of go through here and see what we've got. So we're doing better. We're doing better about that. But for those of you that are not from Iowa, sometime we need to have you, if you're on the road, to stop by, because we have just a wonderful research library. And it's not just Iowa. We have stuff from all over in terms of books, depending on, they tend to be donated by our members. And if they were interested in New Jersey, all of a sudden we've got, 4 shelves of New Jersey books as we go through there.
Yeah, we have quite a collection of colonial records.
Yes, we do.
So
Virginia, some things like that. So
and because Iowa's a strong German settlement, we have lots of German records. So it's not just United States.
yeah. We got the Mennonites and the records as we go through there. And we've got Quaker records, and we just have stuff.
We
And
can
not
help you
everything-
find your family.
And not everything is online. That's the key on that. So you guys all got an email from me. Okay. So ultimately you will also get more emails as we go through there. But if you come up with an issue or a question, you've got my email, let me know. And I can see if I can't help you. If you can't find something, maybe I can dig into it and see what we can find as we go through there. Okay. And if you've got a question that a question that you didn't answer because you didn't know you needed the answer, and it comes up later on, let us know, and we can do something with that. Okay. All right.
Great.
Thank
Well-
you. This was an excellent presentation.
Good. Have fun with it. We have classes all the time. We're having a good
Okay.
time with it. That's it.
So once we get done today, the video will have to be processed. You get an email with a link and a password, and that'll give you a date on how long that's going to be available. It should be 60 days from the time you get the link.
And then, as I said, I will send you a copy of this PowerPoint in a PDF file so that you can read it as you go through. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Go out and enjoy your Saturday afternoon. We'll talk to you later. All right. Good to see you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you later.